DuCharme Pastore, and I've been in Old Greenwich for a very, very long time, raised my children there. And raise your hand if you've ever heard of a place called Putnam Cottage in Greenwich, Connecticut. That's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about that. Everyone's heard of that. I'm going to talk about a place that I couldn't wait to get away from. Bonnie knows the whole story. And then I couldn't wait to come home too. And that's called the Putnam Farm in a very tiny town that's called Brooklyn, Connecticut, where I grew up and was raised. Whenever I've told people I'm from Brooklyn, Connecticut, and I'm never on this side of the microphone. I do interviews, I interview people, I'm a writer, reporter, broadcaster. I interview you for your stories. So I'm not on this side of the microphone, so I'll do my best here. When I say Brooklyn, Connecticut, everyone says, yeah, I've been to a bakery there. They have really great bakeries in Brooklyn. But there is a Brooklyn, Connecticut, and in preparation to tell you about the farm where I grew up for tonight, I looked at how many people lived there when I was growing up. Now, all I could find is the most recent census, and it's 8,000, okay? So it's a little different than 66,000 here in Greenwich, 8,000. And the farm that my father bought is called the Putnam Farm. It's a historical landmark, made historical in 1982. Some of you are nodding, but you don't have to pretend that you've ever heard of Brooklyn, it's okay. And growing up, a long, long time ago, once upon a time, I was 7. And I was driving with my mom, and she was a very young mom. We were kind of like sisters, pretty much. I felt like the older sister sometimes. Mom, hi, I'm sorry about that, but anyway. And we were driving, and I pointed to a big bus. It was a Greyhound bus in Brooklyn, Connecticut. And I said, see that? I need to go on one of those. And she said, where? Where do you want to go? And I said, like the Journey song, you know, midnight train going anywhere. That's what I said. I said, anywhere, Mom. I just want to get out of here. I want to get out of Brooklyn, Connecticut. I want to go anywhere. And I was in first grade. And she, being a really young, hip, cool mom, unlike me, you can ask my 3 kids. My nickname is Mom Cop. But she was cool and fun, and she said, sure, I'll call my friend Susan in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and you can go have an overnight with your friend Sherry. And you can go on one of those buses that says Greyhound or Bonanza or Peter Pan or whatever it said. And so I packed my little suitcase, and I can remember as if it were this morning, because I had to get away from that farm, that awful farm built in 1750, where General Israel Putnam lived. Like, how boring is that? With creaky floors, and yeah, the windows went up and down, and the doors did open and close on their own. But I couldn't wait to get away. It was so uncool. It wasn't a hip house in Brooklyn, Connecticut. And I won't describe what a hip house was, but it wasn't a farmhouse on 9 acres of field with sheep, lambs, horses, and goats. No, that was, and chickens. So I got on the bus, and I came back, and I was really excited. I was like, I want to do this again. I want to do this all the time and never come back. She was like, okay. So when I was 15, I moved to Newport, Rhode Island for the summer with my girlfriend, who was 16. She could drive. And that was really fun, and I kind of got the bug and raised my kids on the Allman Brothers songs, Ramblin' Man, and that kind of thing. Now, let's fast forward to when I had 3 kids. So, bringing them to the farm to see my parents was a whole new experience. The farm became a place of magic and ghosts and mystery and fun. And I have a gag order pretty much signed by my children. I'm not allowed to talk about them ever because they are the masters of their own lives. They're 18, 21, and 24, so whatever. When they were little, with their cousins who were the exact same age, it was the same thing as Stacy. We saw doors open very slowly by themselves. We saw windows open, and we'd go out of a room, it would be shut, we'd come back, it would be open. My youngest developed a talent for telling ghost stories from memory. By the time he was around 4, he would tell the most fabulous ghost stories. And we'd go to Nantucket on the ghost walks. And boy, if you want to hear some great ghost stories, take a tour of the ghost walk on Nantucket. Because as you said, fog and mystery, nothing brings out ghosts like Nantucket, except Plymouth, Massachusetts. We ended up doing ghost tours everywhere because of the farm where General Israel Putnam lived. General Washington put him out to retirement, literally, on the farm. And then one day when General Putnam was in the fields with his oxen, a young American soldier came on horseback and said, General Washington has asked you to please come back and help with the American Revolution. And General Putnam dropped the reins of his oxen and jumped on a horse. You can imagine his wife and kids, right? Jumped on a horse and came back to Fort Stanford, which is very, very, very far from Brooklyn, Connecticut, to join the revolution again and to work with General Washington again. So the farm went from a place that I thought was really dismal and dark and boring and not Newport. It was not Newport, to being a place of magic and ghost stories. And then fast forward again to the January of 2022, when my parents, hi Mom and Dad, headed up to their property in northern Maine, about 9 hours north of us. I call Portland Boston, so it's way above Augusta where they are. And they moved up there, but before they did, my sons and I would spend weekends with my father, and we have a notebook at the farm that's called Weekends with My Father. And we interviewed him, and we spoke with him, and we ignored my mom, and that was really rude. I'm sorry, Mom. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. And I go back to the farm on weekends. It's still running and working and historical, and there it was made a historical landmark in 1982. General Putnam's ghost is absolutely for certain in that house. My mom's best friend, Jimmy Booth, her name was Virginia Booth, who ran a restaurant called the Golden Lamb, which was very fancy, truly believed that she was the reincarnation of General Israel Putnam. So she would show up unannounced and just kind of walk around the house channeling Israel Putnam and telling us what he was thinking and feeling. So that was another reason why I wanted to just get anywhere away from Putnam Farm. But it's a wonderful place in Brooklyn with 8,000 people. I tried to find out how many people lived there when I was growing up, but Connecticut.gov doesn't even have Brooklyn on their list from when I was growing up, which tells you whatever, but now it's about 8,000 residents. So if you ever have the opportunity to take a day trip to a little tiny, tiny town called Brooklyn, where there's a big, huge statue of General Israel Putnam right at the Brooklyn post office, take that opportunity, because it's a town where time stands still, and you can see the fields where General Putnam dropped the reins from his oxen to hop on a horse and speed to Stanford so that he could help General Washington again. And in Putnam Cottage, there's actually a receipt from General Washington, I don't know who he was with, to be honest, drinking at Knapp's Tavern. So it was a really cool place where General Putnam hung out with General Washington right here in Greenwich. General Putnam died in the farmhouse. That's why his ghost is there. He was born on January 7th of 1729, I believe, and then he died in 1790. In those days, the average age for a white male to live was 24 years old. 24 years old. I researched this for tonight. And he was 72 when he passed away. So maybe it was his, whatever you want to call it, energy. You all know the stories about him going down Putnam Hill to escape the British. I mean, he was a wild man, and he escaped death by a hair a whole bunch of times, by the grace of God. So that is my story of the Putnam Farm. And it's a place I treasure now, but it's a place I could not wait to get away from when I was young.